Hello everyone, my name is Zim Ahmadi, peminat muzik tegar budak baru belajar. Today we're going to review PSJKB by Iqbal M. So if you are part of the Malaysian indie scene, especially if you're Malay speaking and you're part of Greater KL, you must have probably heard of Iqbal M, the band, or the person, or the person actually, it applies to both. Iqbal M is very charismatic and confrontational in his performances. He likes to joke around with his audiences. He likes to ensure that everyone is involved in his concerts. And he always has a persona that he carries that some people, especially the media and some communities in the indie scene, have called crazy. They've called him a crazy person. And PSJKB is one of their latest releases as a band. And I think it's one of their best albums to date. So, punk is a word thrown around a lot in the scene. I think a lot of people attribute punk to either the down-strumming aggression of bands like the Ramones, or sort of like the anti-establishment, anarchy, chaotic materials from Sex Pistols. Or if you add the word post to the word punk, you have weirder, audacious, and more experimental bands like Raincoats or The Slits, or more current ones like Proto Mata. And whatever your genre of punk is, the essence of punk is usually like primal sincerity. It's about telling people what you mean without any embellishments, no sugarcoating, nothing. And I think that's what you get from Iqbal M's music. It's honest music. It's honesty through lyrics, it's honesty through sound, and there's no filter to whatever it is that he's saying. Like Iqbal M's music is street poetry. It talks about the truths without layering it. Like you don't have to be a literature major to understand his metaphors or his stories. But if you do have some understanding of the context, you can understand it a bit deeper. That being said, Iqbal M is not really punk rock. They have not tied themselves to any genre per se. They haven't even declared any genre that they feel belong to, because their music is not really about the instrumentation or about the vibe that they want to give off based upon production. It's always been about Iqbal M's words being at the center of everything. Some people have put Iqbal M into the category of indie because a lot of the bands he performs with do play indie music, but I don't think that's really accurate. That being said, there's nothing wrong with being genreless, and what Iqbal M does, whether it's performance or in recording, goes beyond categorization, defies any attempt of putting the music into boxes. Their discography actually has not been that extensive, but Iqbal M as a performer, as a solo performer, has been around since 2010. Back in 2010, he released a mini album called Tembak Tepat, of which the self-titled track was featured in 2018's critically acclaimed Malaysian thriller, One Tu Jaga, produced by Brown Pelare and directed by Namron. And in that album, you can see a lot of that punk roots that I think Iqbal M comes from. And there's also a lot of very folksy influence in his snarl and style of singing, because he doesn't have this conventional way of singing. There's no attention to things like pitch or whatever, and that's actually very appealing to me as a musician, as a songwriter, because he owns up to that crazy man persona. When he performs, he wears this mascara with white sheet blanketed over him so that he looks like a ghost, because he owns up to that crazy man persona, since I think he wants you to question that maybe it's the people you think who are crazy that know the truth. And you have that ever since Tembak Tepat as well, with lyrics like biar jatuh bidadari langit sujud kaki, takkan gentar jiwaku, ini kentallah kau jangan peduli. Like this kind of lyricism already shows that Iqbal M's sense of poetry has been existent even before he developed a band. He finally found bandmates and became a full band, but stuck to the name Iqbal M. And in Antara Darjat, you start to see a kind of musical formula to his music, even though it's still hard to categorize. There's a lot of math rock influences to it, some kind of grungy and punk aggression to the music as well, but very folksy lyricism, because Iqbal M always talks about society, always talks about personal feelings, always talks about, you know, critiques with regards to Malaysia as a whole or the Malay culture that is layered underneath his words and his snarls. So, in the band version of Iqbal M, Antara Dua Darjat, you have a lot of standout tracks from that too. For example, you have my favourite track, which is Selamat Malam Encik Accountant, because Selamat Malam Encik Accountant is one of those examples of how Iqbal M uses stream of consciousness in his lyric to talk about things. So in Selamat Malam Encik Accountant, there's this repeated refrain where he goes, letakkan dia di wak kecemasan, and I think that that really puts you into an urgent state as well, because Iqbal M is singing it in a very urgent manner, and you sort of reflect that feeling. And that kind of stream consciousness is very Iqbal M, and it's very effective and powerful actually. After the history of Iqbal M discography, right now with PSJKB, you see Iqbal M to their maximum potential, not at least insofar as how much they have developed throughout the years, because you also see detail in musicianship, in the way in which the instruments are played, in the way in which the riffs are arranged, and the production detail as well. The vocals and the words are given the same status as the music, and that's a really good improvement. One of the examples of that I want to talk about is actually the track Seri, Dewi, Damak, because in Seri, Dewi, Damak, you have this, very sappy and also cynical at the same time song where Iqbal M sort of plays like a father figure to a daughter, assuring her that her future will be alright. And it has lyrics like Ayah bukakan jalan, kau sendiri pandu kenderaan, and that sort of thing is comforting and really strong poetry as well. But at the same time, at the end of that song, you have a coda, where a coda meaning a conclusion to a musical piece, where you see Shah, Aidil, Johan, and Faye come together and battle off the instrumentations to increase the epicness of that song. As for the other tracks in the album, there's Parah. So Parah is the introduction track to PSJKB, and the way in which Parah starts is you have this vocals where after Iqbal sings something, the falsetto vocals will go ah, and then you have people screaming in a chorus, and that sort of stuff is really anthemic. Like if you hear that in a stadium, it's the kind of stuff that makes everybody sing along as well, and it's a pretty warm song. I think Parah is an example of one of those rare Iqbal M songs that are actually very motivational, and I appreciate the vocal dynamics in that track. The next track is Jangan, Cakap, Saja. So Jangan, Cakap, Saja was released as a single earlier this year, and it's, I think, famous amongst the indie scene for that refrain, Janganlah kau takut, and he repeats it over and over again. I think that lyric, Janganlah kau takut, makes it feel like a sequel to the song Paling Cinta Dalam Dunia from the previous album, because in that first album he sings Aku takut, and then later on he comforts the people instead. He's out of that sense of fear, and now he's on a mission to make sure that everyone knows everything is okay. But as he sings Janganlah kau takut, he also sounds quavery in his courage. Like he's actually scared himself, but he wants to hide it. He wants people to know that he is willing to fight, and that we should also fight as well. In the song Jangan, Cakap, Saja, you also have this line, baca buku tebal belum tentu handal, which is, I think, one of the best lines and the most wittiest line which Iqbal M has ever written. And in this lyrics, you can see that he does also a detail to the musicality, because he doesn't just focus upon the words don't stand on its own. There's a part in Jangan, Cakap, Saja where the song transitions into cricket sounds, and those cricket sounds, I think, is really cool, because it sort of accentuates the lyrics. It makes it sound as if when Iqbal M sings baca buku tebal belum tentu handal, he is talking about the emptiness of people who are ignorant, and also that he's angry and frustrated about people who don't heed his advice. Like, just because you read books, that doesn't mean you're immediately good at something that you read on. And then there's also the song Kota Memujuk, in bracket Merajuk, which was actually released in its infant stage back in 2016. So even in its infant stage, you can see that there is a lot of power to the lyrics already. Even the lyrics get you hooked. So Kota Memujuk or Merajuk is one of the best examples of Iqbal M's spicy commentary on society, a very honest illustration of how we are in Malaysia, or how we are living as people in the modern world. One of my favorite lines in the song is walau terlolong kuat belum tentu menteri YB datang baca doa. And I think that's really, reflective of so many people's aggravation about the powers that be, politicians and governments, who always want to seek comfort in people that always lie to them or never really fulfill their promises. And Kota Memujuk is a monument, I think, to PSJKB, because if you look at the concept art, you can see Fry Yusof here. He illustrated a toy gun with the Malaysian Parliament building as a grip, which shows that democracy is our weapon, right? The voices of the people is our weapon. But you can also see at the same time that it's a toy gun, right? Which is maybe democracy has been a child's plaything. Like, it's not something people take seriously anymore. It's something that people play around with and exploit. Kota Memujuk is the landmark song, I think, of Iqbal M's current career and also of the album PSJKB. And I want to say as well that because Kota Memujuk was released for a long time and Iqbal M has performed it in a lot of concerts, it has a lot of versions, right? So you have the infant stage version and now you have the PSJKB version as well. And I think this song has evolved pretty decently over the years. I think the producer Azmi does a great job at making sure that the energy is not exactly lost. That being said, in terms of production, it's not all in all perfect despite the fact that there are really cool details to it. A song that I feel slightly disappointing is the song Kesatuan, because Kesatuan doesn't really capture the same kind of energy that you get if you listen to that song live. And also it feels like some of the guitars and the drums are a bit dampened and soft in comparison to Iqbal M's vocals. At least to my hearing, I might be absolutely wrong. But again, this is my fault because, nobody told me to watch Iqbal M live and then later on compare to how it sounds like in the album. But that's what I've been influenced to feel like about Kesatuan. Not really their best production work, I feel, in the album. And then Iqbal being the main composer of the album doesn't stop everyone else from being important to the musical arrangements as well. I think a lot of the guitar riffs and the arrangements are made possible because of people like Ideal and Shah's bassist technicality and Faith's guitar works on rhythm and like math rocky sounds as well. But here in PSJKB, you also have one of the guitarists whose name is Johan writing a song and having sole credit over it. And I think that song is called Kalau Tewas, Nanti, Parah. So Johan has sole credit over this song for called Kalau Tewas, Nanti, Parah. And I think it's really a good break in terms of the pacing of the rest of the album because it feels happier. And you can see that Johan has a slightly different style from Iqbal M in terms of his lyrics. It feels more metaphorical and more layered. But at the end of the day, it doesn't distract you from the rest of the album's vibe. And I think it's one of my favorite songs in the album too because it's happy and because it feels musically tight and catchy. Even in the worst track, Balik Bukit, the only reason why I think it's the worst track is because it's not interesting, not because it's a bad song, right? I think that speaks a lot to the performance of the album. Balik Bukit is good in terms of musicianship and in terms of the production is pretty decent, but it doesn't have anything that stands out. For example, the crazy coda that happens at the end of PSJKB. However, the strength of the lyrics still maintains itself in this song with the line, takut nanti kena kencing, habis semua basah kuyup. And I think that's the kind of cynical humor that I always welcome from Iqbal M's writing, and it's found even in their worst track, which says a lot about the album. So, what's my verdict? So, PSJKB, or Perasaan Sedih dan Kacau Bimbang, is proof that Iqbal M is not just a songwriter who wants people to hear his words. I think PSJKB is perfect evidence of how much they've evolved musically as well, that there is detail to production and not just lyrics, which makes them not as folksy as they were before, but Iqbal M doesn't lose any of his soul, as evident in all of the songwriting and all the witty humor and sarcasm that I love in this album. Their evolution has been positive, and I think the artistic statement has become just clearer over the years. One more thing I want to point out, a lot of people like to say that if Iqbal M's lyrics were sung by people who like Siti Nurhaliza or people with more able vocals, then it would be incomparable. They would be unstoppable. Iqbal M would make the best songs ever if Iqbal could sing, quote unquote. And I don't think that's true. I think the reason why the song resonates a lot with me especially is because Iqbal M carries this folksy street performer kind of persona in his voice. That he is a preacher unfiltered. Like he is a person sending a message even if he can't sing. Because that's the type of thing that makes people like Bob Dylan or Iwa Fowles, Johnny Rotten, or even modern Indonesian folk artists like Jason Ranti popular. It's because they can't sing in the conventional sense. They will never win AJL if singing was the only credential. But their words mean a lot to people. Their words feel like it could be written by anyone, and it is for everyone. And that's what makes Iqbal M popular and powerful. And that's what makes PSJKB a strong album to me. That's why I give this album a 4.5 out of 5. So what did you guys think? Did you like the album? Did you hate it? Have you listened to it? If you haven't listened to it, I strongly recommend that you do. If you don't agree with me, please spew all of your hate in the comment section. Don't attack me. Don't cry. Everything will be okay. If you have any recommendations in terms of what album I should review next, it can be from any genre, any country, regardless of language. You can just comment in the section below or go to our social media as well. My name is Zim Ahmadi, peminat muzik tegar. Budak Belajar.